loved when I'd sit there with Lily Mae or Blanche or Clyde, and they'd start telling stories. And when I was first starting to work with Aaron, I kind of felt like I shouldn't do that, because it was like, well, that's not what we're doing. We're working. You know, I'm just blabbing. And then it hit me as like, no, that was what you loved about, what you learned was the stories that went behind the tunes and the stories that went behind the people. And yeah, the music is just a reflection of that culture, and unless you know the culture, that reflection is going to be all blurry.
Sing for me some ancient ballad in forgotten mortal tongues.
Early on, the very first person who took me under his wing was Jimmy Driftwood. And I used to go spend weeks at his house. He was just dyed-in-the-wool folk singer. He wrote the Battle of New Orleans to teach his history class about the Battle of New Orleans, about the War of 1812. And, of course, that won a bunch of Grammys. Anyway, so he was my first teacher. There were kind of two different directions that my influence came from. The actual musical influences were Lily Mae and Clyde and Blanche. But then there was a whole other group of people who were major figures in the labor traditions here, in the music that came out of the labor struggles here in Kentucky. And so that was Sarah Gunning and Florence Reese and Lois Short. They were all people who were quite important influences in my songwriting, especially. And then when you've grown up with a band and grown old with a band, the influence of each of those individuals in your life is profound. So for me, it comes from real world working together, where we've developed a language about music that is, I don't read music, so most of it's in real world. We can talk about what needs to happen. I love that sense. It's like the song takes on a life of its own, and it's really exciting for me. Clyde and I would get to that place a lot, and it was just like, wow. I could hear something about our music coming together that made it one instead of a banjo and a fiddle. And it would start moving up and down together, and volume and pitch-wise. And it was just, those moments I value very deeply. I think folk music in general is meant to be accessible. Well, it's just born from being accessible.
Come on, friends, let's go down, let's go down, let's go down. Come on, friends, let's go down, down the picket line.
The music that came out of the labor culture, and any social justice kind of activist culture, most of them are familiar tunes taken from old hymns or fiddle tunes. When I was in grade school, I used to get teased all the time for playing the guitar. Girls don't play guitar. I mean, I nearly beat up some guy one time for that. It's the only time I ever thought I was going to square off and fight. I was in the 4th grade and I was just learning, and it was just, you don't tell me that. I didn't really hit him, just thought about it.
If she acts that way, it's 'cause you've had your day. Don't put her down, you help
Arts Council has been, for many of us, a way that we were able to make a living and still be artists. So I will forever be grateful for what the Arts Council has done, and it enriches my life to be able to pass things on, and from a lot of different sources. It is sort of like a calling. It is, especially the songwriting. If I see something that deeply affects me, the first thing I think is, okay, I need to write a song. And it's not because so-and-so needs to hear it or that these people need to hear it. It's I need to express what I feel about this. There's never been a time in my life when I didn't know that this is what I wanted to do with my life. And so that's a pretty hefty thing. Most folks can't say that. And, you know, and I think these apprenticeships make me understand my responsibility for the gifts I've been given from other people. And it's like, okay, it's time to give back a little.
Let me fly on wings of wonder as I journey through this time. And when the story comes to an end, guide me safely